Are you escaping?
I'm afraid so. I don't know.
Good to see you, Glenn. Next, welcome Susan Shute. Now, is this your first time here? I thought so. Okay. Welcome, Susan.
I have two very short poems. The first one is an homage and maybe an ars poetica. This is just to tell you I have placed a bunch of sour grapes in the faceted crystal bowl that followed me wherever I was for 40 years. Fresh from the faucet drenching, blushed purple, blue, bruised, shining, they rest against glass. I pluck one from its spindly twig, pop it in my mouth, roll it smooth about tongue and tooth, and bite. Tart and terrible to my taste, I swallow pulp and flesh, chew a bit of leftover skin. When I dine, I always drink red wine. This next one is the inspiration is a combination of the revelations of Edward Snowden and the current confusion in the library profession. It's called A Library Lexicon for Spies. All terms are sourced from the March-April 2014 issue of American Libraries. Inevitability, as in, you can tell us, what are you hiding? Search, as in, just a mining of terrorism terms. E-rate, as in, no worries, it's rated and weighted. Emerging, as in, a profile emerging from the background like a green man. Youth, as in, remember what happened in Boston and Sandy Hook? Organization, as in, arranging the data to winnow the possibilities. Usability, as in, how can you help us? Interface, as in, a selfie can tell you a lot. Knowledge base, as in, isn't information the ultimate good? Network, as in, we're all connected. Open, as in, the world is an open place. Workplace, as in, where everyone can find each other. Weed, as in, to separate the wheat from the chaff. Hyperlink, as in, jumping to where the action is. Online, as in, lining up the threats to our democracy. Yield, as in, sources can be tapped and prodded. Outreach, as in, we need the widest possible field. Understand, as in, what other country is so secure? Analysis, as in, it's all in the programming. Reading, as in, our observations are a function of our content. Expectation, as in, you're living in an integrated society. What did you expect?
Yeah.
Susan Shute, welcome. All right. Let's hear from John Douglas. John?
Uncommon as it sounds, I don't have anything new. But I have two more recent pieces. I think I might have read them here, but I have a few new faces, so I'll read them again. Inside the Dream. He peers beyond the downstairs window tonight, couch bound with a broken leg. The shovel-wide sleigh ride slope beckons him to become one with winter, freezes his speech back into his throat with a thump. In streetlight shadows, blue spruce yards inside hedges outlining his property, green grass hid beneath featherlight snowbank drifts. About the yard, he hears his friends' voices laughing. He closes his eyes, voices long since gone to bed, dream up and down his street, converge here to sled the small slope, its end pond frozen stiff against the steel drain pipe plugged with a wooden plank to prevent its life from running off down the street, its rock bank stretched tight, slant to the carless road now snow deep. He blinks them free. People rise out of the snow, all growths. Little ones, snowsuits to protect them from stumbles, elders, overseers, and trust to prevent incident, cart logs to fuel the stone-lined fire pit. Flames rise out of the ground in ceremony. They gather sufficient time to warm their feet, force back pins and needles. Then steel rail sleds whoosh by, nicking oak roots exposed at the snow slope base. Sparks flash past onto the pond in a flurry of white tracks, skidding into darkness out of sight. His mind lost in snowflakes, endless drifts bury the world. Like a snow globe, shaken, he sleeps. Thanks. Like I said, these are kind of old. These are written during the height of the snowstorm, the height of winter. So this one is entitled Snowstorm. He overburdens himself, cradling more firewood in his arms to avoid return trips to the lean-to. His son's job until their fatal car crash October past. He draws the logs tight to his chest, tosses one leg up, watching it disappear into the snowbank. He raises the other over top, shuts his eyes, then down. He calls, Sean, Seamus, picturing them on the back porch. Pushed forward by winds slapping him breathless, he gasps, gathering small handfuls of air from his mittens, full of cherry oak, maple, birch. He quickens his pace toward them, tearing his legs out, in, shouting the names again and again, and in hope to find them closer, shoveling his old minivan out. The ice shelf between this and last week's storm shatters. Off balance, his legs sinks waist deep. He struggles, firewood tumbles. Twisting, he wrenches his foot free, leaving his boot buried behind. He's up, hobbling blind into settling winds. The house, its flickering fireplace mantle candles turn visible. Wood or no, he needs to be indoors, thawing his frost-nipped foot he drags behind. Even if he tries to backtrack to retrieve his boot, it'd be no use forcing him into the snow-soaked insulation. Throwing a mitten off, he digs deep into his jacket pocket, grabs the Bic to test how durable. He shakes it, seeing if there's any fluid left. It does. He flicks it. It sparks 7 times before a small flame pops cupped inside his palm. He prays the wind stays still long enough to keep frostbitten away. He plops into a sitting position. The swirling snow storms about him, pulls his foot forward, keeping his heel at hip, the lighter flame to feel, not burn until it fades, then disappears. Gone, he drops the Bic, massages his yellow, grayish foot to get circulation back. Its waxy texture grows thicker under his thumb. Thank you.
John. Hang in there, we're almost done. Okay, so if you might be wondering why this gentleman has been hiding under the stairs all night, he's not actually hiding. But Larry Sansone is part of our tech team, first floor tech team with Glenn Werner. So thank you, Larry, and thank you, Glenn, for all this electronic mumbo jumbo. Larry is another supporter of our series for a while, and he is also Beacon's Poet Laureate. Welcome, Larry Sansone.
He emerges from the crypt. This one is called Parrots in Brooklyn. With feathers flash, full spectrum pageantry, their flutter shuddering against chill winds will juxtapose gray stone of industry, bright flapping chatter masked by urban din. Forgotten infrastructure's cavities become their concrete cliffs, their steel beam perch, escapees, careless and unfettered, free yet tethered by instinctive kinship search, to land upon an enclave of their own, a flock formed of the misplaced and released. Composite color congregations roam, companionship in living tapestry, while whistling soft familiar melodies of all who sojourn lone dark city streets. And this one's new. Since so new, the inspiration for it can be still seen on the corner of Main Street and Eliza here in town. It's called Eliza Street. The craning necks of yellow metal beasts, which lull and swing, then raise prepared to strike, upon the concrete meat and wood-framed feast of prey condemned to suffer sacrifice. Like lo-fi sci-fi creature carnivores, they masticate through man-made edifice. Facades collapse, revealing vacant floors, exposed as they erode and crack and twist and crumble, joints undone, cement unfixed. Glass shattered like a waterfall of shards, beams split and splintered into jagged sticks as slaughter sounds the switching of the guard. Pedestrians approve the violent change, the mall of progress praised, the past betrayed, enticed by sights of currency exchanged and scalpel strikes rewriting yesterday. They cheer this teardown triumph over time, evolving in divine trajectory, while clouds of rubble, dust obscure their eyes from wider sights of death and destiny. For all perceived advancement we enjoy, this whitewash rapture yields persistent stains. We act as nature's agents. We destroy at her own pleasure within her domain to represent our own impermanence, removing our own trace from history with bricks forged frail and indeterminate. We master worlds devoid of memory.
Hey, really, after a poem like that, you don't have to go back on this. No, seriously, come on. Larry Sansone. Our last reader for the evening, it's only... What was I going to say? It's only natural that the last reader of the evening would be the hardest working man in Hudson Valley poetry, Mr. Robert Milne.
Why, thank you, Mike. You realize now that they can't kill me, which is good. So, since some of you are still awake, let me start out with the torturous Garrison Keillor on steroids for the last few days since Monday the 31st. The great British poet Andrew Marvell, born in 1621, John Donne's death in 1631, Edward Fitzgerald, born in 1809, bet you haven't read him, Victorian poet, Octavio Paz, born in Mexico, there you go, in 1914, Christian Morgenstern, German poet who died not in the Great War, but I'm not telling you of what, in 1914 on the 31st, and Franz Joseph Haydn's birthday in 1732. On the 1st of April, the great, the libertine himself, John Wilmot, Earl of Rochester, 1647, Edmond Rostand, French poet, born in 1868, and Gil Scott Heron, born in, 1949. We lost, what was it, 2 years ago he died? Yeah, 3 or 4. Also the anniversary of the death of a good friend of ours who read regularly in New Paltz, Diana Dirks, in 2009, on the 1st of April. April 2nd, Gary Soto, Mexican-American poet, born 1952. The great French novelist Émile Zola, born in 1840. And Hans Christian Andersen, born in 1805. On the 3rd, which was yesterday, John Burroughs. Yes, the naturalist. He also was a poet. 1837. George Herbert, British poet, born in 1593. The French poet Albert Samain, born in 1858. And if you haven't been to Sunnyside, you need to go. Washington Irving's birthday on the 3rd in 1783. American poet Daniel Hoffman, 1923. Read his biography of Poe. Trust me, just read it. The great Johannes Brahms died of cancer in 1897 on the 3rd. He was only 56. Julius Slowacki, great Polish romantic poet, died 1849 at the age of 39 of consumption on the 3rd of April. Also today, one for Mr. Wheeling. Today is Comte de l'Outremont's birthday. There we are. You have to be rather twisted to be a devotee, but we'll let it go. 1846, and what? Oh, I can only hear the voices in my head, so I don't. So today is also the birthday of the American poet Marguerite Johnson in 1928. Marguerite Johnson, Maya Angelou. Her real name. What? Muddy Waters today, 1915. 16, 19. That's off the top of my pate. Not bad. All right. I can't get everybody in there because then we'll be here till. We'll be here till I don't know, 2018. On a drop of dew. See how the orient dew shed from the bosom of the morn into the blowing roses, yet careless of its mansion new. For the clear region where 'twas born, round in itself encloses, and in its little globe's extent, frames as it can its native element. How it the purple flower does slight, scarce touching where it lies, but gazing back upon the skies, shines with a mournful light, like its own tear, because so long divided from the sphere. Restless it rolls and unsecure, trembling lest it grows impure, till the warm sun pity its pain, and to the skies exhale it back again. So the soul, that drop, that ray of the clear fountain of eternal day, could within the human flower be seen, remembering still its former height, shuns the sweet leaves and blossoms green, and recollecting its own light, does in its pure encircling thoughts express the greater heaven in and heavenless. In how coy a figure wound, every way it turns away, so the world excluding round, yet receiving in the day, dark beneath, but brighter above, here disdaining, there in love. How loose and easy hence to go, how girt and ready to ascend, moving but on a point below, it all about does upwards bend. Such till the manna's sacred dew distill, white and entire, though congealed and chill, congealed on earth, but does, dissolving, run into the glories of the Almighty Son. Andrew Marvell. Okay. And because for some of you, winter has returned, so this is calling we're calling a lot of entities this evening. This is calling on the great General Howland himself. I have seen him in the watchfires of 1,000 circling camps. That's from the Battle Hymn of the Republic by Julia Ward Howe. Howland's Library. It's not the strange art hanging on the walls, nor is it the poetry. The general does not like the free verse. But the grandfather's clock stands again, a metronome, as the first bow walks across the cello's ribs, sweeps the catgut viola hair, and our general nods in approval. The quartet's fervor calls Maestro Beethoven, but no one smells the faint gaslight breath. The maestro takes the balustrade and wanders stacks of sleeping books. His coattails rustle dust, and spider webs dislodge and float to the old pine floor. Ghosts dreaming of ghosts. Look to the chandelier, once gas flames danced low, admired by tiny brass cherubs, beckoning the curious traveler to the hallway of Howland on a dark winter's evening. The violins whimper, moan, and screech, birds trapped in a locked room. Can the quartet summon Manassas, Antietam, Richmond in a heinous July afternoon of paranoia and destruction? What can you tell us from the dark secrets of heirloom history, General Sir? Raise that salute to the ghastly sentries posted in your honor aside the entrance at the big red doors. Tioronda is glowing tonight. Your library on Main Street is filling with ghost patrons eager to read your books they'd never consider antique. They wait just beyond the doors of your grand eerie library. You, General, stand with the shade of architect Hunt as he gazes from each of the 6 gables or hovering just above the chimney. Dozens of faces appear in the old volume stacked in dust and cobwebs on the balcony, faces of soldiers you once led, friends, family, and patrons invested in subscription. The quartet's passion is rosined in fear, bringing wraiths through the second-floor windows, down the chimney, whispering in the old radiators, calling them from the banks of the Hudson with a tyrant haberdasher from the storage room at Bank Square. His wrinkled forehead sweats fog, which encompasses the young musicians whose clothing changes, from skirts to gowns, from suits to coats to antebellum frocked wool. The general's top hat falls from the balcony as a string groans, then breaks. A straining violin held by a terrified young woman. She shrieks, calling on Beethoven as the general stands beside her, diaphanous hands on her psychic brow, caressing her shoulder in comfort she cannot feel but sees. The music does not falter. She is alone in Howland's charmed library. Hundreds of whispering crows walk down the grand staircase, scattering coal dust feathers, glutting the hallway, eyes enkindled, burning to an October crimson. Wings flap to the entrance of the bloodless, beloved librarian. The matron leads the young soldiers, Grand Army of the Republic, in indigo blue bellies, bullet holes, or shattered limbs, arrive to see their benevolent officer. Patrons disembark from coaches, ladies bedecked in Victorian finery, gentlemen in the best of coats, curious to find the tumult of strings, tones walking out into a chilled autumn Main Street. The mesmerized quartet moves their chairs, used by poets on Friday nights, to allow the good General Howland to stand in the center while the troops surround their leader and adagios turn bellicose as a drummer boy with his broken stick hanging from a shrapnel-torn hand begins the battle hymn of the Republic as each member of the quartet sits, mouths agape, empty-handed, as the violins, viola, and cello play by themselves. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Thank you. Well, I'm going to call Mike and Jim up to say something as you all depart. I want to thank our featured poets, Rebecca Shumeda, wherever she is, and Janet Hamill, and perhaps Jim and Mike want to say something. What?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yes.
4/14, man.
Yes.
MLK. Today was the day that scarred America, basically. Jim, Robert, Larry, Glenn.
Where's Glenn?
He had to leave. We all say thank you. Christopher says thank you. Marina says thank you. We all say thank you for supporting the program. Come back next month, May 2nd. Christine Shannon Klein, who you heard read earlier, and Irene O'Garden, one of our biggest supporters, will be here. Come on by. Thank you very much.
Have a good night. Get home safely, everybody.
Well, Florence, thank you very much.
You're part of the team now. You got to come out from underneath there.
Were you recording? Were you recording?